Hello, good morning and welcome to this morning's session from EcoProd. Our topic for this morning, saving water and improving hygiene with sensor taps. So before we kind of launch into the main content, I've got a few kind of housekeeping points. You will notice, there we go. You will notice as you join that your lines are all muted automatically. But you can ask questions using the Q&A function. So there's a little, if you hover your mouse in the bottom of the Zoom window, there's a little Q&A button there. If you send me questions in there as they occur to you, we will answer what we can in the background, but we can also stay on the line at the end of the session to ask those. We are recording the session today, so once we're finished here, I will get the recording processed and we will get an email out to you at some point this afternoon or tomorrow morning that has a link to the full recording, but also has a copy of the slides that you can download. So all of the materials we're using here today will be available to you later. To kind of give you an overview of the agenda, I know you've all seen this when you booked, but this is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about how sensor taps can offer water savings of up to 70%. We're going to be talking about the kind of return on investment that's available, the different types of power that are available in the sensor tap offerings that we have, how these kinds of taps are designed completely with hygiene in mind and how they can improve hygiene. We're going to look at the sort of modular design so that you can pick out the best solutions. We're going to look at a single spout option. So that's a tap that will dispense water, soap and hand sanitizer. We will talk a little bit about installation and design, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of maintenance and reliability. You have got three of us on the call today. My name is Rachel. I'm on the business development team here at EcoProd. I'm mostly in the background today covering the questions and so on. Our two presenters are Marcus and Paul. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, okay, Rachel, thank you. And good morning to everyone that's joined us. Yeah, my name's Marcus Rose. I'm the founder and director of EcoProd Technique. My background actually is I'm an M&E engineer. We ran a very successful mechanical electrical contracting business up until the early 2000s. And then we launched into water saving and water solutions with EcoProd Technique. And I'll just pass over to you, Paul.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Paul Musgrove. I'm the sales director at EcoProd. I've got a background in commercial environmental sales, which goes back 4 decades. And hopefully the interest in water has been a passion of mine for many years. And hopefully today we're explaining to you some really interesting facts, and hopefully it'll be an informative session with you.
So good morning again to everybody. And just to give you a brief background as to EcoProd, the whole principle of the name EcoProd stands for ecological or economical product. And it's based upon 3 pillars that underline what we do. And that is use less water, waste less water, and reuse and recycle water. And that's really depicted in the infographic you can see on the screen there. We take a very consultative approach to sales, whereby we engage with our clients and customers, understand the buildings they're operating, look at their processes, look at their maintenance schedules, and then come up with solutions that plug into that operation, all based around a return in investment promise. And you'll hear more about that as we go through this webinar. And if we can just move on to the next slide, please, Rachel. So on the screen there, you have a snapshot of our client base, very diverse. We pretty much supply into every sector of industry. Some of those clients have been with us since the concept of EcoProd back in 2007, and some of them are more recent, but all of them have come on board with us because we've been able to deliver that return on investment promise, not only for immediate benefits, but also longevity of product. And again, since the challenge of COVID, we're actually finding a trend towards hygiene being almost a deciding factor with some clients in their washrooms. Hence, the diversity of the personnel that you can see there. Would also like to mention that we try and work alongside the larger maintenance companies that represent other brands here in the UK, so that we deliver into that collective maintenance structure for long-term benefit.
Right, I'll pick up from here. Thanks for that, Marcus. Sensor products, I think we've all seen them. They've been around a very long time. Would you believe they were first developed back in the 1950s? So 70 plus years of sensor taps being around. Obviously, technology has moved on. And what is important factor to remind everyone of is every customer is different. Some customers are interested in water saving. Some customers are interested in no contact operation. Some energy saving by the effects of using less hot water on low flow solutions, and some have interest in carbon. Some may have interest in all those points, but choosing a sensor tap has lots of different reasonings behind it. With water at scarcity levels and population growing, we have a bit of a problem. So having sensor products in place rather than sticking with traditional manual taps will help save thousands of litres of water. And as we said at the beginning of the presentation, typically around 70%, although sometimes it's a bit higher, sometimes it is a bit lower. On this slide, there's an interesting point at the bottom which I wanted to share with you. It's that 1% of water in this world is accessible for human consumption, easily accessible. That makes 99% more challenging, more difficult. And with the fact that there's no more water on the earth today than there was 2,000 years ago, we have a big problem in the fact that the population is growing, as we all know, and because the population is growing across the world, the concrete foundation is growing. So I think we all have a reason to want to move on to sensor products, whether commercial or possibly in residential in the long-term future when people start accepting technology. Do you want to move to the next slide, please, Rachel? Thank you. So manual taps, lever type, spindle type, non-concussive, they tend to have a much higher flow rate than sensor taps. They can be left running, they can be left dripping. So I think there's a really strong incentive to want to change. And most clients that we visit on a daily basis seem to understand and experience that and appreciate that. We also have to accept, though, that certain environments do not want low flow, but possibly a sensor tap that has a slightly higher flow. And we have to be respectful of the fact that each client we work with receives a bespoke solution. So although you hear the phrase all the time that sensor taps and typically low flow switch off automatically, you have to understand that in certain environments, certain clients may want something different. And with the products, the quality of products we work with, we have that flexibility to work with them. When it comes to the financial side and benefit of sensor taps, the last 2 points on this slide here actually explain exactly where we're coming from. Typically, we can see taps daily at 10 litres running on minute on a manual product, whereas with a simple sensor change at 2 litres or slightly lower possibly, we can see there's 8 litres a minute. If you're running a business with hundreds of people in the business, that can make a huge difference. And the average person in the UK washes their hands for 7 seconds. For a sensor tap, that represents 0.23 litres of water per use. And when you look at the manual tap as 1.17, that's actually equates to an 80% water saving. So I think when you actually look at the water reductions that can be achieved and also the carbon reductions that can be achieved to go with that water saving, there is incentives there to change. And on the next slide, we're going to sort of try and demonstrate the return on investment for you. Marcus, do you want to run through this one?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So as you can see from the title, this was a motorway service station operator that we worked with in 2017. As we know, those washroom environments are very high footfall. They operate 24/7 and they have a limited time for engineers to maintain products within those washrooms because of the high footfall. And what we did was we tried to demonstrate to our customer that we were prepared to go on a journey with them to understand their water use. So we installed hot and cold water meters in one particular site, only in the gents washroom. And we did a scheme for 3 months with the existing taps running, which were self-closing non-concussive taps, and then for 3 months with the Conti Ultra product from EcoProd. And what you can see there is the overall water saving. We also were trying to explain to the facilities manager of that company that there is a huge number in terms of carbon related to the non-delivery of hot water. Now, this calculation is very conservative because we allowed a diversity factor of 12 hours, bearing in mind that these premises are open for 24 hours. And as you can see, the total saving there across the change of products was £3,250.25. And that actually worked out on a 16-month payback for that product. So that was not only cold water saving and the hot water saving, but it was also the non-delivery of hot water as well. Once the products have been installed, they then rolled out the product throughout all of their operations, and they commented to us, both the facilities manager and the estates director, that their regional maintenance engineers now never have to go to those washrooms because of the reliability of the product, whereas before the self-closing non-concussive taps were breaking, the mechanisms were wearing out through use. As we know, when it's the cold tap, they seize up because of age, and if it's the hot tap, they stop working because the mechanisms are so loose that they close almost instantly. So this was a win-win solution on every front for that particular customer. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks. Next slide, please, Rachel. How do we power taps? Okay, there are a number of variations on powers that we can provide today. I think everyone's aware that mains and battery have been around for a long time now. However, we can now start to look at greener solutions for powering taps. We have taps that are run by a solar system, taps that are run by turbine, with a turbine located within the body of the tap. So as the water enters the tap, it turns the turbine, generates power, and the power is then stored in a capacitor within the tap itself. So again, there's many options. I think the most important thing when you're considering the power is the location and what the taps are going to be used for and who's going to be using them. If you do opt for battery, which is always my first recommendation rather than mains, if you can reduce infrastructure of mains, you reduce costs, you reduce operating costs, energy costs. And the tap itself, because of the technology within the solenoid, which is a key part of the delivery of sensor taps from EcoProd, we only use a small amount of energy to open and close the tap and the solenoid to allow it to flow. The tap flowing with water uses zero energy because of a clever design with using a magnet within the actual solenoid itself. So it's a completely unique product where we can actually guarantee the battery will last up to 4 years based on 150 uses, open and close sequences per day. As you can see on the screen, that equates to 219,000 open and closes before the battery will need changing. And within the battery capacitor, there's an LED on the taps as well, which identifies when that would need to be changed. So green solutions can add to that. We're talking about 4 years of life expectancy with battery. If you were to add solar cells to the tap or turbine, you're looking at a tap that can be self-sufficient from a power source for up to 10 years, reducing the need for continuous maintenance. So always when you're looking at your taps, think about the power options, think about whether you've got mains power there already to pick up on, think about the environment of the washroom to see if you've got sufficient light coming in as artificial light to actually charge a solar tap. And maybe possibly also consider the new technologies in turbine coming through as well. Thanks for that, Rachel. Next slide, please. Sensor taps also have another key benefit, which both Marcus and Rachel alluded to earlier on in the presentation, in the fact that touch-free hand washing. It has to be a better solution for every environment. I can't think of an environment where contactless is a better solution. We're going to talk a little bit in a minute about taps that deliver soap and water, and I'll let Marcus pick that one up. But if you're not touching something, you're reducing the risk of cross-contamination between users, reduce risk of infections. I mean, we've all experienced COVID, and everybody that I'm aware of didn't want to touch anything and wiping surfaces down. So I think we're all in the mindset now where if we can reduce contact between users, then maybe from a healthiness point of view, we are in a better environment, and we're keeping things to actually help people stop cross-contaminating, touching and passing bacteria and bugs around. This is especially true in areas such as healthcare, food processing and food service locations. So we must consider hygiene and non-contact taps as a really positive step forward. Waterways need to be considered. So what you can also achieve with a sensor tap is you can actually start to coordinate a routine. So if you've got taps that are in a remote area or taps that aren't used on a frequent basis, routine hygiene flushes can actually be built as a bespoke solution per tap at commissioning stage, so that we can consider the length of pipe work of water to a tap. You may have one tap at the end of a building which is 20, 30, 40 meters from where the water's coming from. It's really important that we don't allow water to stagnate in that pipe work. And we can do some calculations. A good example is if you've got a 20-meter pipe work length from the previous point, you'd probably be flushing that tap for about 45 to 60 seconds, depending on the flow and depending on the pipe size, just to pull sufficient water through the system to clear that so that you've got fresh water coming in. And these taps can be programmed, say that in the last 12 hours since it was used, 24 hours, 48 hours, we can run a flush and we can decide how long we want to flush that for. So everything can be bespoke to make sure that we've got a hygienic solution. Next slide, please, Rachel. As well as having benefits for hygiene, we've also got benefits of modular solutions. So we try and design taps, work with our manufacturing partners so that if something goes wrong with an electronic tap in the future, rather than replacing the whole tap, we have a component form. You can just about make sight of the display on the top right hand corner, shows how a tap can be taken apart. And if that tap was to go wrong, we have a fault finding mechanism which identifies which component part you may need to change. Think about the investment options. You buy a tap, you tap this quality product, it's installed, it works brilliantly for 2-3 years, something small goes wrong with it. And if you follow the fault finding sequence, you can identify that that part may be a £5 part, £10 part, rather than replacing the tap. And that's also to encourage FM and maintenance people to consider not just taking something off the sink and saving a little bit of time by changing it over, but saving money and actually buying spares, which as a company, we stock and have ready for delivery within 24 hours from date of order. So fault finding documents, consideration of the modular options on taps. Wall mounted taps are also pretty important. I've seen a number of wall mounted taps from other providers over the years, which are confusing for plumbers, confusing for electricians, because sometimes you need both trades. The products that we will supply normally come for a wall box situation in 2 parts. A simple back box connected into your water system and a front part which includes your tap. So a very simple delivery option, which can be very, very easy to install, not complicated, and they needs no professional requirement of extra additional services. Either a plumber or electrician can fit this tap without any difficulty whatsoever. We also have cold water taps, which are an atomized version, which can both save water and energy. Again, this modular option to have something that can do a spray pattern, so that although it's a cold supply, that spray pattern is so fine, it actually feels warm to the touch and doesn't feel cold. And that might be an option for other areas. And one final thing on modular, in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see the image of a small point of use heater with a localized tap. Now that can be a really, really significant benefit in a number of ways to a client. One, getting a hot water supply to an area can sometimes be challenging. Two, having hot water stored, ready to be used, sitting in pipework to be cooled off, has a big expense. This point of use heater has a cold water supply, and it has an instantaneous heater in there at 3.5 kilowatts, developed as an eco version, but it will only heat the water for the amount of time you need to wash your hands. So there's no storage costs, the energy costs will be low, and the tap itself has a low flow requirement. So it could be a perfect solution. And from a hygiene point of view, if you can eradicate hot water supply out of a number of your buildings, you're probably also helping your Legionella's process to actually enhance your water safety systems and safety plans. So let's move on to the tap that has the integration, and I'll pass back to Marcus.
Thank you, Paul. And just one addition to the previous slide, the modular system that Paul was referring to is also all above deck maintenance access. And also you don't need to turn the hot and cold water services off to maintain those products because of the unique design within the body of the tap. So it's an added benefit to both maintenance engineers and also on initial installation. So moving on to combined taps that dispense water, soap and or hand sanitizer. So this product is the original. It's Messiah. The word means to mix. And we brought the product into the UK in 2009. It's gone through 3 software generations since then. And there are 2 versions for the commercial market available. The image in the middle is called the Classic, and that dispenses water and soap and disinfectant, all touch-free. Also, the temperature control for plus or minus is all managed by a touch-free operation. The junior version to this is called the Light, and that dispenses water and soap typically. Again, all touch-free. These products are all programmable. They can be managed through your phone via an app using Bluetooth. And again, it comes back to what Paul mentioned earlier about setting up hygiene flushes. These taps are totally programmable. You can set up hygiene flushes if the product hasn't been used, again for 12, 24, 72 hours, whatever parameters you want to install into the product. Also, we have an addition now to this product called Aqualiba, and that product will do all its hygiene controls and flushes internally. So the operator never sees the water coming out of the tap spout. There's a unique intercircle system within the tap where the water is pulled through the product, goes back down within the spout and out through a unique waste outlet to your waste system. Totally touch-free, and obviously that operation is going on invisibly as well. Also, all of the parameters you've set into this product can also be exported in an Excel file. So you have total transparency around L8 compliance for water hygiene control. And obviously, not only is it touch-free for just the water, but being touch-free for soap and disinfectant as well, especially in the healthcare sector. You've got totally clean lines. You've eradicated all those additional touch points where hygiene is essential. So it's an absolute solution, not only for healthcare, but also in every washroom environment. I mean, we've got clients that have got this product who are running and operating corporate offices, and this to them is a solution for their staff. Again, no touch, total hygiene control, and that's the solution in Messiah from EcoProd. Thank you.
Can I just add on that one as well? Not only is it a combination tap which provides water, soap, and potentially disinfectant or hand sanitizer, but from a design point of view, it gives you a really clear line design with uncluttered areas around the wash basin or trough, or whatever you're operating in. So it really is a fantastic solution for all in every single sector. Moving on to installation and design options for sensor taps. The taps themselves are phenomenally good. They've got features and benefits, which are too many to mention today, but we can talk to individual customers directly. But they can be enhanced by the platforms that we have available to work with the taps, so that you're looking at network systems where the operations control can actually start to control water remotely or from their desktop if they don't want to go to site, and start to download information about reports. What's actually happening on your water system? Which water call-off points are being used? Which water call-off points aren't being used or less frequently? That's got to be a great thing to help you actually manage the hygiene of your building, and to make sure that if something's not being used, the consideration and risk assessment of whether you need to remove that, and also water usage. These apps, these platforms can provide options where you can actually see how much water you're actually using in a building. Individual taps can tell you how much water they are consuming just by connecting a Bluetooth app to a tap and talking to it, and you can start to see which taps are being used regularly, which ones aren't. That will also help you towards enhancement of your maintenance controls, and to make sure that you've actually got the information you need. I guess there's also a litigation protection option here as well. If you've got information and data recorded and stored in either Excel, PDF, or CSV files, you can prove that you've been doing your maintenance. You can prove you've been doing your water flush regimes in accordance with your approved code of practice for your business. And you can actually plan everything. You can plan hygiene flushes. You can plan thermal flushes to make sure that all of your waterways in really, really good order. Simple taps installed, simple connectivity to networks. And we've got 3 or 4 platforms that we can talk to individual customers about, linked to the various taps that we've mentioned to date. But even for small installations, that middle picture on the left is something that we've been really busy taking to the market for the last couple of years, and it's working really, really well for people that may not want to put a full network in, but once a quarter, twice a year, something like that, they're going to actually connect to the tap, download that data, and use that data to the benefit of the business. So I think all of these things, there's so much more than just water, hygiene, soap dispensing, no contact. There's a lot more benefits to these products than one would consider. And I think maybe now is a good time to move on to maintenance and why we should do maintenance. So Marcus, shall I pass back to you here?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So as a mechanical engineer myself, I always see maintenance as a very key topic for any building operator. We find that a lot of it is reactive, and to me as an engineer that makes no sense. We believe that if building operators, facilities managers have a correct preventative plan maintenance schedule in place, they will get much greater benefit out of products installed, especially around longevity. These products that we were talking about are not complicated to manage. Parts and components are very easy to replace. Even just the simple things like cleaning aerators, cleaning filters on a planned maintenance schedule, you will get extended life throughout all of your products installed. And to me, that actually makes, it's absolute common sense. It protects your investment, and you'll find that products will last for a very long period of time. And it comes back to the life cycle of product again. I mean, there's a number, there's a figure that's going to be going to the bottom line, in my opinion, for companies that actually put preventative plan maintenance schedule in place and keep to it. And I think it's a win-win for all. Not only will you have the peace of mind that your connected products are all working, your visitors, your customers, your staff, you'll see every time they visit your washrooms, they'll see a product that's been correctly maintained and has an impact. People notice these things and they will comment about it as well. So again, it comes back to you as an operator. It's about image, and some of these things go on without us understanding and noticing the full impact of what that really means. So coming from an engineering background, I'd say that preventative plan maintenance is key to any building operator or facilities manager. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Marcus. I think we've covered quite a various amount of different aspects. Talked about sensor taps this morning. This session is a short session, and hopefully it's gained your interest. But just to summarise before we take any questions, sensor taps are smart. They are easy to install. I say that because I'm talking about the taps that we talk about, the taps that we work with. So doing due diligence as a company and asking the right questions about design and shapes and performance and flow rates and guarantees and warranties and how to maintain, all those sort of things should be asked. There is so many design options available and color options available and hybrid taps. The picture on the right there actually shows a fantastic kitchen tap, which has both a manual application as well as a sensor built in. Why would you put a sensor on a kitchen tap? Well, quite simply because when you're in the kitchen, you're working with fish, you're working with chicken, you're working with children, maybe painting and things like that. And rather than touch the tap, use the sensor element to draw up to the sensor, draw back, and the water flow will start. So technology's moved on, water consumption can be reduced, and we can help you, but don't just install products. Think about the application, think about the hygiene, think about individual locations, and ask your installer, ask us to work with you to actually set a plan so you're delivering a product and a plan that goes with it that falls into line with what you need to do for your building. And that's about the summary. So I guess, Rachel, we're going to look at some questions if there's anything that's come in from our guest today.
Just to add, Paul, that in the kitchen version, I didn't comment on it, but the Messiah tap is available in the kitchen version as well. It dispenses water and detergent. And also, just to let the personnel on this webinar know that we do many color options as well for both ranges.
Thanks, Marcus.
Okay, so just to wrap up, we do have some other resources. So we have a full white paper available on our website talking about sensor taps, and then we have a broader white paper about water saving in general across your business. When you get the materials through, these are both clickable links that will take you directly through to our website. Questions? I just need to get to the bit of the Zoom control panel. I've got a couple in here. So you mentioned darker skin tone being an issue. What about high-vis jackets? Do the sensor taps have a problem with those?
Shall I chat on, Marcus?
Yeah.
High-vis jackets have always been a problem for sensor products. So again, with the products that we work with, within the sensor, we actually have a control element so that the sensor, when it's functioning around a washroom area, we can actually reduce how far that sensor is reacting to so that we can capture the sensor activation of the tap flow all within the sink area. So if a high-vis jacket walks past an area, if that's been reduced, that tap will not have a false activation. And again, that's part of the planning and the design and handover, talking with clients. We've done that a few times in the last 12 months. In actual fact, we've actually been very lucky where other brand products have not been able to do that. They've not had that adjustment, and their products have been removed and ours have been installed because of that factor, Rachel.
Okay, thank you. We've had sensor taps where the power has been unreliable. Can you talk about how to mitigate that?
It's a straightforward question, really. I'd like to appreciate the environment where they've been unreliable. I'd like to understand the product that has been installed so we can advise properly on that point. Some of our battery products use standard AAA batteries. Some use AA batteries. Some use 6-volt batteries. The clever thing for us on the battery versions is, as I alluded to in the presentation, our battery options only use power when you open and close the tap for performance. I am aware of other manufacturers in the UK and further afield that use power continually through both opening, flowing and closing of a sensor product. So again, if that's been an issue for you as a customer, I'd be very happy to take a direct contact with you and see if we can solve your problems for you. That's the only reason why you'd have problems with power if you've got a battery that's actually not performing properly. I've seen some taps in the field which have been lasting less than 3 months, and they're paying £12 and £16 for a battery every 3 or 4 months because of the high user numbers. So again, it's a consideration point. Talk to us, come to us directly, and we'll see if we can help you out with a solution.
Okay, thank you. If you have a tap using only 30% of the water, isn't it just a trickle?
Not at all. I think that's a really good question. And I think if I was to say to you that I have a tap in my range, which can flow at 0.6 litres per minute, and it can actually give a very good hand wash, it's to do with the way the water is structured within the body of the tap, the technology within the tap, the flow control itself, how it delivers the water. If you consider the bore of water, when it travels through a 15mm pipe to a connection point, that's fine. You can only move the water at the pressure that you can deliver into a building based on your individual buildings. But when it gets into the body of the tap, the technology starts to take over and will actually drive the right solution, and it will give the right flow. And again, we have a new showroom which is becoming open officially on the 2nd of April. And we'd invite anybody on this call today to come down and visit us by appointment and take a look. I think it's about 12 live taps we've got set up on our water trough area, and we've got others that we can show that aren't connected, but we can also change them over and show you the tap design that you like, so that you can appreciate the flow for yourself and make sure it ticks a box for you. But no, that's never an issue for us.
Okay, thank you. Do you have the stats on the knock-on savings for carbon or energy with the reduced delivery of hot water? Oops.
Yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. What I tend to do, and Marcus does the same, when we visit a client, we would normally do some initial audit on their existing stock and give them an idea on how much water they're using in the individual area. We'd also look at their footfall, their business operation hours, and we could do some calculations. We'd look at their water bills, and we can then, in a spreadsheet, a single spreadsheet, we can give them a water footprint for where they are today. With the offering of our product range and working with the client on different designs and the selection that's made, we can then put forward what they would achieve by changing to a certain product with the different flow rates that they select, and they want to work with the right design body. Once we know what that solution is, on that same spreadsheet, we will add the carbon reduction, so that when we calculate how many people are using a tap on a daily basis, and you're taking it from 10 litres to 2 litres, and you're saving 8 litres per person per day for each wash they're doing, if they use it for a minute, obviously. And we can calculate that in a business, say an office block, the average person would use the toilet 2-3 times on a daily basis, depending on your hours of operation. And we can actually help with that. So we can do you a properly formatted plan to show your carbon reduction with the water savings and the energy savings that you're achieving through that change of product.
Just to add to that, Paul, there is an industry standard recognized formula that every litre of water saved is 0.4 grams of carbon.
Absolutely.
That's for the delivery and the wastewater treatment. and also on the carbon around the non-delivery of hot water, that will be bespoke to every site depending on the heat source.
Thanks for that, Marcus. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I've got that has come in. So thank you very much for joining us today. I will get this all processed for you, as I promised at the beginning. We'll get an email out to you as soon as we can that links to the recording, including this Q&A, and has a downloadable copy of the slides that we've been using. Thank you, Paul and Marcus, for your presentation, and hopefully we will see you on another one of our events sometime soon.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.